This is video 3 of the TRiQSoft demonstration series. This video covers drying and curing of the cannabis product, packaging and advanced value adding, sorting, grading, good manufacturing processes and best practices for manufacturing, traceability, quality control, inventory management, wholesale sales, and point of sales integration and financial package integration. TRiQSoft cultivation and processing concentrates on ensuring you have the highest possible profitability from your cultivation and manufacturing processes. During this process, TRiQSoft will manage your traceability and your accountability of all cannabis products at all times. Most employees, when they access your TRiQSoft solution, will only get to see this screen right here. This is the My Task screen, and will show the employee a list of their tasks that they need to perform. Every time they finish a task will disappear from this list, and they can also click on a task here to fill out details such as the inventory that they used or the amount of time and other resources that they used during that task. To demonstrate the drying and curing processes, I'm going to use the Start Drying function. Depending on employees' permissions, you can actually turn these buttons on and off. So if one employee doesn't have permissions to perform the drying or curing process, then obviously you disable this button for that particular employee. From the Start Drying screen, we can see a list of items that have been harvested. In video number 2, we saw how we could harvest the cannabis product. Here we can see a list of the cannabis product that's been harvested recently. Normally, you would probably cure that product immediately after harvesting. So I'm going to select the product that we're going to put into the drying process. When we start the drying process, we can record some basic details, and you can actually control which details need to be recorded during this process. You can also set the standard drying period of time, the average drying period. I've set mine to 0, so we can actually follow the process all the way through. You can also record additional details here, and these can also be integrated with selected TRiQSoft or TRiQ systems equipment. You can determine which fields you want to record during this process. So I've added a few fields here that we can record during this process. All product is given a batch number when it is put through a process. So this is a drying process we're using right now. So batch number 14 has been assigned to this product. The product that we've started to put into the drying process is no longer available for the Start Drying process, obviously, because it's now in that process. We can follow that product through the process logically, and we can see that that product is now ready to being taken out of the finished drying process. So we can select which product we're going to take out. I'm going to put the mold into quarantine because I've configured this system for my state, and it requires that we must quarantine product that's moldy. So this is a product we harvested in video 2, and in my state, we have to dry the product before we can quarantine and destroy the product. Depending on what state you're in, you can actually specify when quarantine should happen, if it needs to happen, or when destruction needs to happen. So this mold product has now been reduced to 90 grams, and I'm going to send that to the quarantine process and specify a scheduled destruction date. The system's suggesting a specific date, and that product's now in quarantine. So specific employees that have the ability to perform the destruction process or destroy product process can see what product needs to be destroyed on what date and perform the destruction process. Returning to the finished drying process, we can now see we have the 1,200 grams of useful product that we can remove from the finished drying process and put into the curing process. We need to record the dried weight of this product and also optionally a bin number. So if you have built-in barcodes on bins, you can scan that barcode, or you can enter that barcode manually, or you might not have bin numbers, in which case you'll probably want to print labels from TRiQSoft to identify the product that you're putting into bins. And once again, we need to record some basic details for that product. You can also capture some of these details during the curing process with particular equipment that integrates with the TRiQSoft solution. You can also generate byproduct during any of these processes, whether it be curing or drying. You can actually generate trim, leaf, stem, and additional mold, for example, and you may wish to print inventory labels to go on these products. Now that our product has finished curing, we can remove that product from the finished curing room, and we can purge the gas and record any additional details we require during this stage, and you can actually tailor these details for your requirements. We can record the final weight of the product. We need to select a storage location for that product. All product in TRiQSoft must always have a storage location. We can generate inventory labels for that product. Once again, all product has an inventory number at all times. So we've now followed the product through the curing process. through the drying and curing processes. What can happen next depends on your business's requirements. The cured product is now currently in bins and in storage. In some states, you could sell that product as is, as a bulk product in those bins, or you could sort that product in a batch and remove any excessive trim or stem that may have come off the product during the curing process. To sort the product, we're going to use a batch manager, and we'd normally simply create a new batch, and in that batch, we would input the packed product. I'm giving this batch a name just so we can follow it through the process. We've just created batch number 7, and we need to say where we're processing this particular product. To sort our cannabis product and grade it and remove any excess leaf, we can create a batch. So I've just made a batch here, batch number 16, and I've given it a name, sorting product. Into this batch, I'm going to input the inventory that we cured in subsequent processes. So here's some cannabis OG Kush. I'm going to add that to the inventory. I'm selecting this manually from a list. Normally in your business, you'd probably scan that product into the batch. You wouldn't need to select it from a list. So here we can see the product that has been put into this batch. These are known as batch inputs. Inventory in a batch, 22 grams of OG Kush cannabis. So from that, we can generate an output. So we can sort our product and generate the product that's coming out of this batch. So in this case, we'd probably generate, let's say, we need to select the batch that we're generating product from, and then because it's only a very small batch, we've made, let's say, 3 units of OG Kush 3.5 grams, and this is our finished product. This is a final product that we can sell to a dispensary or a patient, and we can label this product if necessary. Label that product up. We can generate the labels in TRiQSoft according to each client's requirements. That's just one example label. There are many different types of labels you can generate through the system. You can turn them on and off, which labels need to go on that product. So from this batch number 16, we may also wish to create some leaf or trim or stem, because there may be some byproduct coming out of this batch. So let's say we've got 5 grams of trim came out of this particular batch. You could also create other byproducts coming out of the batch as well if necessary. So therefore, we've just created some stem, and as always, everything has a storage location and an inventory number, and you can of course label that product. So this product might go into another batch. It might be used in a batch that we create oil from, for example, or might go into be blended with other product for a rolled smokable finished product. So we've just seen how we can very quickly create finished product by sorting it and removing trim and stem. Now that's one way of creating finished product. However, some states allow you to create more complex products. So in this case, we can look at this batch here, batch number 7. To create advanced value-added products, which are legal in some states, we can create a new batch, and this time we'll give it a name. How about my oil vials? And this will be batch number 17, which is the batch number automatically assigned to the system. So in batch 17, if we have a look at the batch tasks and the inventory, there's no inventory in here so far, and there are no tasks. So what we can do is we can use our best manufacturing process or our best practice for manufacturing oil. So you can actually specify best manufacturing processes the same way that we did during the cultivation process. We can actually specify best manufacturing processes for batch processing of materials. So here we can see the processes that we've specified: get the materials, sterilize equipment, set the climate in the room, adorn safety clothing, grind raw material into powder, and so on. So these tasks will actually appear on the My Task screen. So if you assign this batch to a specific employee, they can now see all their tasks appear on this list. And they can go through their tasks one by one until they've completed the process. They can also perform tasks concurrently if required. That's no problem at all as well. So this will guide the employee through the process, and on each of these items, the employee can actually record any materials or equipment that's required, inventory equipment, and employees can be attached to these tasks. You can also obviously attach photographs and documents to these tasks, like test results and things like that. You can also perform quality control tests that may be attached to these tasks during this process as well. So here we can see a quality control test attached to a task, and we can actually go through and perform any tests that you may wish to record against these particular manufacturing processes. Throughout the manufacturing process, every time the employee or team leader finishes a task, obviously that disappears from the list, same way that this My Task list worked for the cultivation process. Once again, the items used in a batch, the inventory used, can be scanned into the batch or manually selected. Here we can see some OG Kush cured cannabis that's been added to this batch. To create output from this batch, we can simply use the Create Inventory screen to generate the finished product. So here we'll simply select batch number 17 as an active batch, and we'll record what we've produced from this particular batch, in this case 10 units of hash oil vial, 3 ounces. So that's our product finished there. However, what we could also create is any byproducts. We could create them, or we could record any waste. If there is waste that's unaccounted for, we can actually get that from batch waste reports, and which is a traceability report. We can also perform traceability on this product because this product is related to batch number 17. So we can always trace that product simply using the batch number. Using our batch recall tools, we can actually find out the inputs into each batch and who we've sold that product to. So we've just produced batch number 17, and let's find out what happened in batch number 17. Here we can see the inputs into the batch and where that product came from, the name of the crop, or the crop batch, where that product came from. We can also see the inventory we made in that batch, the output from that particular batch. We can see that we produced inventory number 16891701171 from that particular batch, and some of these have customer names and transport companies recorded. So this means that we know exactly where that product went. We can see the invoice number that product was sold to and the method of transport for that product, so we can track down that product. This product here, the inventory number 168, which has no invoice number, we can see obviously that's still in stock, stored at our storage location. So all product produced using the TRiQSoft solution can be traced using various different methods of traceability, the batch recall being the main method of traceability. The manufactured product can be traced back to the origin of the product, to the crop batch. We can find out what chemicals were applied to each batch, for example, what fertilizers were used, so we know exactly what went into each batch, whether it be from a cultivation or a manufacturing point of view. Throughout the batch manufacturing process, we can also obviously analyze the costs of each batch and any waste that might have occurred within a batch, and we can trace that to particular employees that were working that day. So any shrinkage will also show up on these reports. Inventory that becomes a batch input to a batch can also include packaging materials, and this means we can trace back those packaging materials to the supplier or manufacturer based on the lot number or the invoice for those particular materials. This can all be managed using a TRiQSoft inventory system, which allows stock takes, purchase orders to acquire inventory, and the analysis of the value of product you have on hand, and also the expiry of product on hand. TRiQSoft manages wholesale sales. You can create sales orders, which are purchase orders from the customers or the clients, and you can make sales against those particular orders, or add to an existing invoice, or simply sell directly to a customer without having an order. Here we can see our customers already had several items put on their invoice. We're going to add another item to their order, some rolled joints, for example, and we'll sell them the full 50 joints here. We can enter a price for that product and add that to their invoice. From here, we can generate transport manifests and various other documentation required depending on which state you're in. You can also report on the tax that you've invoiced and configure your excises as required. TRiQSoft supports integration with multiple point-of-sale solutions and e-commerce systems, and you can also integrate TRiQSoft with financial packages as required. Please see your TRiQSoft solution consultant for further information.